Stranded in Hell by Stephen C. Maher II. Narrated by Otis Jiry. I did everything for her. Please remember that, and I'll start at the beginning. My wife and I, we woke in a suspended cage. All of our clothes were torn in places, but our bodies were fine. The cage was dirty and bare. The only thing in it was us. Outside the bars of the cage was an unending landscape of jagged rock, featureless except for the things that moved across its surface. People and things that were not people. This is how my wife and I woke up in hell. We were both rational, but rationality only lasts so long. We cried, we screamed for help, we moved past emotion. The cage was our home for a time, but eventually the hunger forced us to make a decision. The cage was unlocked. Why would it not be? It was hung from the ceiling with a massive chain, suspending us thousands of feet from the floor. The landing was not soft. But in hell, your body never stays broken. We learned this after the jump. We walked for a very long time. Many people around us had either given up, choosing to lay on the floor and moan, or they walked like we did, my wife and I. She kept me going, and I like to think I her. The things that were not people were the only true reminder of where we were, all different from the next. Some of them were massive, crushing people in their wake. And others worked like a hive, a single mind for countless bodies. All of them had teeth and claws stained from use. There was a ceiling, so there had to be walls. It was a goal, at least, something to do amidst the terrible hunger and pain. The ceiling was as flat as the land before us. Its only feature was a gaping hole that only the ragged, winged creatures could travel. A way out, maybe. I did everything for her. A long enough time, and you get used to anything. Hell almost seemed redundant. The sound of unending pain was boring, and the sound of bone cracking was common. Only two things needed avoidance: the dark and the sacks. In the shadow of the greater creatures, people sunk into the floor, almost as if the dark came alive, their desperate fighting and screams lost to the total blackness. We only saw this twice. The other peril, the sacks, were large, unmoving, and made from burned flesh. My wife and I watched a man limp to one. It screamed at him, a high, piercing noise that drew us closer from our vantage point. I thought of a siren briefly. Before the man was sprayed with blood, the force of it sent him backwards. My right arm was also covered, and it began to itch with a force I thought impossible. Before my eyes, my arm became a deep red as it hardened like steel, my fingers sharpening. In my terror, I paid little attention to the monster that sprang from the place the man landed. The sacks were the forges in which demons were made. My arm never stopped itching, and my attempts to satisfy it with my left hand made my fingernails cracked and broken. But I had a way to provide for my wife. I used my arm to cut and maim people, stealing clothes, food, shelter. We forgot our pain by forcing it on others. I did everything and more for her. There was no way to keep track of time, but it was so long I forgot my name. The only thing I never forgot was my wife and my love for her. What got us in the end was one of those sacks, the sirens. The call of them was undeniable, at least to my wife. I tried to stop her, but she was always faster, and my arm made running impossible with its great weight. I followed her, screaming, begging her to listen to me. But she was coated in the sick blood of that thing by the time I got to her. Her body grew larger, her arms longer, almost tentacle-like. Her screaming deepened as her feminine form was lost to the changing. I cannot imagine the agony she was in. Her head grew horns, her back grew great leather wings, her legs fell off at the knee with a snap. Once her transformation was done, she gave me a knowing, pained look. I had tears in my eyes. The first true liquid I felt since we got down there. I was picked up by one of her new arms, and a flap of her wings took us up. I felt the wind ripping through me and the roar of our fellow demons as we tore through the hole in the ceiling, darkness taking over us. My waking mind found myself sitting in the smashed car. The truck had hit us head-on, sending my alcohol containers all over the interior. I knew they were mine because my wife did not drink. In the passenger seat, my wife's legs were crushed, my own arm hanging limply by the smallest amount of flesh possible. I looked into her dimming eyes, her irises bright red and glowing with fire, before she shut them forever. She did everything for me. I'll never forgive myself, and I don't think I should.